I was born with a 100-pound ball and chain on my leg.
Made you strong, didn't it?
With that chain on my leg, I want to know, how do I love me when I hate me?
Well, you can't. But when you're not hating you, you can. You've got to catch yourself in a weak moment. What is the, if you want to talk about it, what do you think the subject of self-hate is mostly about?
I hate being black, honest.
Really?
I hate what I saw, history, what I learned. I hate that I am less than. You talked about something, we're born in this. I don't understand how how did I create being less than?
Well, you didn't, but you were born into an environment that was stupid. We mean that in the nicest way. You're born into an environment that was detached enough from alignment and therefore insecure enough that it began the comparative experience. And so in that comparative experience, we talked about that a little bit before segment of lunch, that people feel like in order to be special, they have to create some hierarchy in order to claim their specialness. But it is our promise to you that those who have relegated you or anyone to a lesser position have done the greater disservice to themselves. Hard for you to hear that because you feel like you've been mistreated or like a large segment of the population has been.
Yes.
But and we are not in disagreement that things have happened and that there has not been reason for you to feel that way. But we are wanting you to acknowledge that things are better, are they?
Yes, it's just scary to, like a few people here, I just don't see myself as uplifting anything. It just amazes me to hear that about me. I don't see me. I've never seen me.
Well, first, most people do not know themselves as they really are. That's why we talk to so many people in this way. It's not uncommon to not know about your connection with Source, and it's certainly not uncommon to not remember it. You didn't come into this environment with a memory of what had come before because you wanted the fresh start of beginning again. As we're visiting with people these days, we're explaining that the best, if you've been hating yourself for a while, or disapproving of yourself, or taking someone else's opinion of you, and of course there are a lot of different people who have a lot of different opinions, so it's interesting that you would notice some of them and not others of them. That's what law of attraction does. You cannot experience beyond your own perception, and yet your own perception is often formed by your experience. And so that's what we are wanting to unravel in these hours that we are together. And so we are starting at a more basic place, but of course it takes a little while for you to find a way to get in touch with that basis of who you are. It really comes down to your personal decision that you want to feel good and your willingness to then just think and feel, until you eventually develop a pattern that works for you. We were visiting with a young man many years ago. It was maybe the very beginning of Esther receiving us in this way. And he said to us, "Why in the world would I be born gay? Why would I do that to myself?" And nothing that we said soothed that. In other words, he was just in such a mindset. He just could not accept that he would have done it for any positive reason because it didn't attract positive response from the people who were surrounding him. And we said, "Well, what is it about that bothers you the most?" And he said, "My mother hates me." And we said, "And how do you feel about your mother?" And he said, "I hate her. I hate her for hating me." And we began talking about this cycle where is sort of a chain of pain, where it's a response to conditions. If someone is looking at you in some way that you can't control, and then you are reacting to the way they are looking at you, or the way you perceive that they are looking at you, you are out of control. There must be some way that you can have your own thoughts apart from what you think someone else is thinking. But that's the tricky part. It's what you think they think that's got you all bound up. It's your regurgitating of what you think they think. It's your interpretation. And of course, then when you get feeling that way, law of attraction just brings you evidence. So then you proclaim, and you are right when you do it, I'm not making this stuff up. In other words, yes, Abraham, I may feel this way, but the reason I feel this way is because this and this and this. And we so much want to get it turned around in your mind that while it feels like you feel that way because of this and this and this, it's really this way because you feel this way. Now, the chain of pain started somewhere. And we are not denying that there are not today injustices. And certainly, whenever anyone looks at injustice, you feel the discord of it. It makes you wobble every single time. But what you have to recognize is that no matter what, it is possible to stop your wobble. But the first thing you have to do in order to stop your wobble is to acknowledge that it is a wobble, that it is a self-perpetuated wobble, maybe not self-started. Let's just say it got started some way and it didn't feel like you started it. It was started before you were even born. You were born into the wobble. You were born into the wobble. Why in the world would anybody be born into a wobble? Why would you do that to yourself? Because you knew when you came in that you could stop the wobble. You knew you could. You knew that you didn't have to continue in the path that had been before, that you knew that you could dilute the wobble. You knew that you could make a difference in the wobble. You knew that you could feel differently in the wobble. And that's what those like you that were born into this time and space knew. That's why you made the decision to come. You knew that this is the time of awakening, the time of returning to who you truly are. If you look around the world, any of you, you would find, if you looked around the world in any sort of an objective way, where you are just evaluating what you see here and here and here and here and here, you would find so much not in harmony with what you want that you would make yourself a miserable person just by observing what's around. Because of this one factor. Not because there is more not wanted present, there isn't. But because you have picked up along your physical trail, almost everyone has, this notion that in order to get to a better place, you have to rid yourself of what isn't good. So there is this misunderstanding about the way this universe works that goes something like, instead of law of attraction, instead of law of calling to me that which I'm offering a vibration, there's this human belief in law of exclusion. If I can just push hard against, there's a war against cancer and a war against drugs and a war against this and a war against that. And there is this human belief, erroneous, flawed, never works, we don't know why you don't give it up, that says, if I can just push hard enough against this thing that I do not want, that I can push it into non-existence. But because the laws of the universe defy that, every time you push against it, you just activate within yourself a vibration that says, give me more of this, please. When you see something you want and you say yes to it, you include that in your vibration. When you see something you don't want and you shout no at it, you include it in your vibration. So we want you to come to the place of acceptance that you are the creator of your reality, which means you're not a reactor to what others are thinking.
Okay.
There are so many people who are in love, not just with who you are from your non-physical point of view, but who you are as a person, who you are as a personality, who you are as a representative of a race. In other words, there is no hatred for black in this audience, is there? audience is not unique in the world. It's special. You're special. You're really special. And so here you are. You have a strong vibration that has caused you some trouble, and you came upon it honestly because you were reacting to the conditions around you. But you managed to come into an environment like this and many others where everything that you said doesn't fit here. It just doesn't fit here. It does not apply here. And so even though you're in the middle of a place that it clearly does not apply, you still spoke it. From a vibrational habit, from a belief, because it's a vibration that a thought that you keep thinking, you see. But as you have the experience of expressing it where it doesn't fit, and expressing it where it doesn't fit, and expressing it where it doesn't fit, and that's the thing about lining up with Source. You see, you're not ever going to find any condemnation from Source. So if you've been condemning yourself, you must have found some vibration that's got you separated from that which is Source. And it's logical to do that because it's a rare person that can have something pushed at them that they don't push back. But that is the key to living happily ever after. Give your attention to what feels good, and in doing so, you will be giving your attention less and less to what does not feel good. And before you know it, you will have left that vibration behind, you see. And you had to have left quite a big clump of it behind, or you couldn't be here.
Well, my girlfriend didn't tell me what it was about.
Well, we weren't talking about here on the ship.
Oh, okay.
We weren't even talking about here in this room. We're talking about here in this chair.
I understand.
How'd we find you? Anybody else want to be in this chair? Yeah, like about 500 people. But here you are. Here you are. They're all pretty irritated about it too. Here you are. Here you are. Here you are. And you couldn't be here. Someone can't drag you kicking and screaming into alignment. You see, here you are. And so be easy about it and watch how much better it gets. And be playful about it. And don't try to fix it all at once.
Yes.
And don't condemn the world that is. Here's a good way of looking at it. If you were to find someone in the street bleeding, we know for sure that you would go to them and you would help them. You'd do everything you could to bring them relief. When you find someone suffering from disconnection from their source, standing, and instead of writhing in pain and bleeding, they're writhing in hatred and anger, you don't feel like helping them quite as much, do you? Feel like sort of punching them out a little bit. But when you realize that it's all the same, that those who hate the most are hurting the most. They are those who have deprived themselves the most from the source within them. And so it perpetuates, because in their hatred, they disconnect. And in their disconnection, then they're trying to find reasons to blame for the way they feel, you see. But it doesn't take too much to get that turned around. And we know for sure you're on that path. For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good?
I appreciate
Something
it.
more?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, really good. Really good.